I'm going to tell you something right now. You are officially an astronaut.
Thank you so much.
How do you feel?
I feel super connected to love.
Do millennials actually talk like that? So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the incredible all-female space mission that has managed to grab so much attention in the mainstream media. Well, not just the mainstream media, all the space media is definitely latching onto this as well. If you read the headlines, you would think that this is just Katy Perry's mission, even though she's not really the one responsible for it, but rather the fiance, Lauren Sanchez, that is, the fiance of Jeff Bezos. She's the one who has arranged most of this, I think with a great deal of financial help from Mr. Bezos, but not entirely. I want to be completely fair about all of this. Most of these women are very much self-made women. They're not operating off of their husband's currency or off of inherited money or anything like that. All of them are quite successful on their own. And actually, I respect, well, I guess one of them and their reasons for going to space. But all of this having been said, I am really taking exception to just how much significance this mission is being given, especially if we're talking about comparisons that are being drawn. The first all-female space mission, I've seen this over and over and over again, and I am so sick of it. The first all-female space mission since Valentina Tereshkova. And of course, hers was an all-female space mission because it was just her in the capsule. Now, as far as I know, Ms. Tereshkova has not responded to this at all or made any comments about this mission. Perhaps she's just not paying any damn attention because it doesn't deserve her attention. But when it comes right down to it, if I were her, I would be beyond pissed that any sort of comparison was being drawn between what these ladies did and what she did. Valentina Tereshkova is the definition of a self-made woman. She was born on March 6, 1937, in a small village on the Volga River. Her parents had migrated from Belarus, and her father was a former tractor driver and became a sergeant in command of a tank in the Soviet army. But sadly, he died not in the Second World War, but actually in the debacle of the Finnish Winter War of 1939, when Tereshkova was only 2 years of age. She graduated from the Soviet equivalent of high school at the age of 16 and began working at a tire factory and later at a textile mill, but continued her education by taking correspondence courses and graduated from the Light Industry Technical School in 1960. But she also became interested in parachuting and trained as a skydiver at the local aero club, making her first jump at the age of 22. While still employed as a textile worker, she trained as a competitive parachutist, but she kept this as a secret from her family. But fortunately for her, the Soviet space program was interested in training a female cosmonaut at the time, and they felt that parachutists would be the ideal candidates for this sort of training. After beating out 400 other candidates, Tereshkova began her training. This included isolation tests, centrifuge tests, thermochamber tests, decompression chamber testing, and also pilot training in a MiG-15 jet fighter. She also had to go through water recovery training at sea, as part of which several motorboats were used to agitate the water in order to simulate the rough conditions of space travel. She also began studying at the Zhukovsky Air Force Engineering Academy and graduated a few years after her flight, so she eventually became an engineer. Tereshkova went to space on June 16, 1963 on the Vostok 6 flight, which, by the way, was the last flight of the Vostok spacecraft. By the way, at the same time, another cosmonaut on Vostok 5 was already in orbit, having launched on the 14th of June. The idea was to have two astronauts flying simultaneously in orbit and actually passing relatively close to one another, which actually they did. The two space capsules passed within 5 kilometers of one another, although they were unable to see each other apparently. But in case you're thinking that this was some kind of Soviet propaganda stunt only, well, originally Valentina was only supposed to spend 24 hours in orbit, but it was going so well they extended the mission to 72 hours. And keep in mind the type of spacecraft that Valentina was on here. She was essentially strapped to a ballistic missile and put into this tiny little coffin. I mean, essentially strapped into this 2.3 meter diameter pressurized cabin. I can't imagine sitting in something like this for 3 days in your own urine and filth, for God's sake, and ensure they had little receptacles that she had to use, and unique equipment, by the way, because all of that had to be designed for female cosmonauts as opposed to the men that had been using relief tubes up to that point. All of this had to have been unbelievably difficult for her for 72 hours. And by the way, that was more time in orbit than all of the Mercury astronauts combined up to that point. And once again, lest you think that this was some kind of one-time propaganda coup for the USSR, the Soviets flew not only the first woman to space, but also the second, Svetlana Savitskaya, who went to space not once, but twice. And they also trained Yelena Kondakova, who went to space not only with the Russian space program, but also on the US space shuttle. Sadly, the Russians have trained only 2 more women who have gone to space since. It can therefore be argued that Russia has become less egalitarian since the fall of the USSR than more egalitarian. So yeah, pretty damn big distinction between Valentina Tereshkova and women like her and what these ladies did. Doing what I call the 10-minute suborbital bungee jump does not even begin to compare with what real female astronauts go through, or astronauts in general. But yes, female astronauts do go through different experiences than male astronauts. Again, for a lot of the reasons that you saw in that video, they have to have spacesuits that are specifically made for them, if for no other reason, for unique toiletry requirements. So all of that being the case, it is extremely difficult for a woman to spend a considerable amount of time in space. And then, of course, the more time a human being spends in microgravity, the more of an impact that has on their physical health, on their recovery time when they land. But if they spend 10 minutes in suborbital space, it's not even remotely the same thing. What I would have liked to have seen is just a little bit of humility here. Just a couple of statements, and who knows, maybe in the endless press coverage that's been made of this particular mission, if we can call it that, sure, maybe one of them may have actually said something like this, but as near as I can tell, no one has. Don't try to compare me to some of the women who have come before me, the women who have spent days, weeks, months, close to a year. Some women have spent over a year in orbit, and the amount of sacrifices that they've had to go through in order to achieve something like that. Just a massive, massive difference between what real female astronauts have to go through and what civilian astronauts or suborbital bungee jumpers have to go through. Because even civilian astronauts, real civilian astronauts, have to go through a hell of a lot more than these ladies did. For example, a recent mission that took place orbiting the poles, the first time that human beings had followed an orbital trajectory that would take them over the poles. By the way, there were 2 women on this mission. Anybody know what their names were or what they were doing on that mission? Well, sadly, even I don't know. So I thought that I would do a little bit more research and put it on this video.
There go the clamps.
Right, and
Oh,
that's
hang on.
still the handle.
Whoa, what a perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
Open up to Antarctica.
Yes.
Let's go in.
Sounds cool right here. Sunrise.
That's probably better. Distribution of labor.
What you're watching is footage from the Fram 2 private astronaut mission, which was bankrolled by Chung Wang, a cryptocurrency entrepreneur who had the lifelong curiosity about the polar regions of the Earth, so he decided to commission this mission to fly over the poles. And this was a very scientifically oriented mission. That was the objective, not space tourism. He was the mission commander. Jannike Mikkelsen, one of the women, a Norwegian cinematographer, served as vehicle commander of the Dragon spacecraft. Rebea Roge, who is a robotics researcher from Germany, the other lady on board, was the mission pilot. And Eric Phillips, a professional polar explorer from Australia, was the mission specialist and medical officer. Wang shared some insights from the mission on social media. Quote, "The ride to orbit was much smoother than I had anticipated, but the first hours in microgravity weren't exactly comfortable because the crew dealt with space sickness for quite some time. But fortunately, the symptoms subsided after the crew slept. These are experiences that astronauts, real astronauts, have to go through when they spend a lot of time in orbit as opposed to 10 minutes in microgravity. Well, not even that long, 10 minutes in flight." The crew conducted 22 experiments while in orbit, ranging from the first medical x-rays taken in orbit to tests of a device to enable crews to exercise within the limited space inside a spacecraft. All of those experiments were completed successfully, according to Marissa Rosenberg, senior medical research engineer at SpaceX. The research even continued after splashdown. The 4 crew members exited the spacecraft with little or no help from the recovery team on the ship. Rosenberg said before the launch that this was intended to get experience on how crews on future missions to the moon and Mars would be able to leave their spacecraft when there are no recovery teams to assist. The crew also took advantage of their unique orbit to study the polar regions. Now, at first, Wang in one post sounded disappointed with his views of Antarctica. Quote, "Unlike previously anticipated, from 460 kilometers above, it is only pure white. No human activity is visible." However, he had a different impression when he saw the Arctic islands of Svalbard, which are too far north to be seen on missions to the International Space Station. Quote, "I often say that Fram 2 is a Svalbard mission," he wrote, noting that the crew met on Svalbard and that he's planned this mission while living there. From this perspective, the mission has perfectly achieved its goal. By the way, why wasn't this all-female mission more of an orbital mission? This sort of experience as opposed to just a few minutes in microgravity where very little science can be carried out. Well, for one reason, obviously, that's something that Jeff Bezos could not have planned or bankrolled, but also number 2, in my opinion, the whole idea of collaborating with Elon Musk on an all-female mission would have created so much political turmoil right now that it would have destroyed the entire purpose of the mission. And that is truly unfortunate. And by the way, for anybody who watches my channel, you know that I am one of the most vehement critics of Elon Musk, but that shouldn't sabotage everything that anyone has planned when it comes to SpaceX. What do you think? I'd like to see your opinions in the comments on this. And also, another thing that I really had an issue with or just had a hard time dealing with was just the reactions. And okay, maybe these are all legitimate reactions of ladies who have gone through extreme G-forces, experienced a few minutes of microgravity, come back down, the thrill ride experience of all of that. And maybe they were somewhat at a loss for words. But man, what some of these ladies had to say was just close to cringeworthy.
I can't put it into words, but like I looked out the window and we got to see the moon.
And it was pink. Was it pink?
Full moon. It wasn't pink, but it was almost full. And Earth looked it was so quiet. It was just quiet. And
is it what you expected?
No.
Better?
Yeah. I don't think you can describe it because, you know what I was saying? It was like quiet, but then also really alive. And you look at it and you're like, we're all in this together.
And although Ms. Nguyen and her reaction to it was definitely understandable given the things she's gone through in her life, and she's actually a legitimate scientist who took some experiments up with her. Actually, a few experiments were indeed taken on this mission. So, her reaction, I think, was something that I could relate to some degree.
And share for what is this right here?
Yes, and this one I didn't know if I would bring, but I ended up bringing it and floating it, and it's the hospital van from the day. And, I got to honor her today, and I'm so grateful to the thousands of people, the engineers, the scientists, just everyone who has made this a reality.
And then, of course, there's Katy Perry.
I feel super connected to love. So connected to love. I think this experience has shown me you never know how much love is inside of you, like how much love you have to give, and how loved you are until the day you launch. Flowers are, to me, God's smile, but it's also a reminder of our beautiful earth and the flowers here and God's smile.
Seriously, Orlando Bloom, I know she's hot and everything, but if she talks this way all the time, I don't see how you can possibly deal with that. Seriously, I mean, as I said before, do millennials really talk this way? Jeez. And by the way, I'm sure I've already earned some comments of okay boomer on this video. Let me go ahead and educate you as to what a boomer is. A boomer is somebody who was born during the baby boomer generation, hence the name. However, I'm not a baby boomer. I was born during a time called Generation X. Kids who were born in the late 60s, early 70s, became teenagers in the 80s. Gen X is the generation that I come from, not the baby boomers who are my parents' generation. So if you're going to call me something, I don't know, call me an X-head or something like that, instead of confirming just how stupid your generation is by referring to me as a boomer. And incidentally, as I was recording this, a reminder just popped up saying Katy Perry returns from space. This shit is everywhere. It's driving me nuts. She wasn't the only woman on the flight, for one thing. She wasn't the woman responsible for this flight. And frankly, I think that she was the woman who accomplished the least during the flight as well. She didn't have any experiments to carry out. She didn't take any experiments with her from children or scientific organizations that would be interested in a brief microgravity experiment. But when it comes right down to it, there were very few experiments that were taken to orbit anyway. This is what a microgravity experiment mission actually looks like. This is the Italian Air Force experimental mission that took place on the Virgin Galactic flight, which, by the way, is a very similar thing, a brief microgravity mission. And this is, well, to put it in terms that my British viewers would understand, is a microgravity hen party.
1, 2, 3, taking up space!
So really, when it comes down to it, some of the things that I found to be the most disappointing about all of this is missed opportunities here. I think a lot more could have been done on this mission. Every last one of these ladies could have put out a request, an invitation to schools, to scientific institutions, to take some sort of experiment up with them, and yet precious few were actually taken up. Granted, a few were, but very, very few. Each one of these ladies had an opportunity to bring something related to women's health, something related to materials behavior in microgravity. I don't know, there's a lot of different types of microgravity experiments that can be carried out in the space of just a couple of minutes. Each one of these women could have done something, just brought something with them. It wouldn't even have had to have disrupted their microgravity hen party to have done that, but as near as I can tell, it was quite minimal. Just by making this an all-female space mission, that in their minds was enough. And frankly, it just wasn't. In some ways, it does a disservice to all of the women who have come before these ladies, all of the women that have sacrificed so much in their lives, especially female astronauts who are also mothers, the enormous sacrifice that they have had to go through in order to spend months and months in orbit. There is so much more that could have been accomplished during this mission, a much bigger statement that could have been made, but instead we were stuck with this.
Super connected to love.
What does that even mean? But in any event, it could have been worse. I mean, you know, all of this stuff was just kind of cringeworthy, a little awkward and everything. But at least we didn't have, oh God, no. No, please, no. She wasn't even on the flight. God, why are you going to go talk to her?
And I have never been more proud of my friend than today. Never been more proud, because this is bigger than just going to space.
No! Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed all of that. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also please consider supporting this channel on Patreon and PayPal, because unlike these women, I am not swimming in cash. I don't have rich friends. I'm not going to be going to space anytime soon, but if you'd like to continue to hear my obnoxious commentary, all the details are in the description. So until next time, stay angry about space.
It's not about me. It's not about singing my songs. It's about a collective energy in there. It's about us. It's about making space for future women and taking up space.